that this is it. It's all over. The economy is going to crash. The Gulf states are not going to have oil to sell, and they're not going to invest that money from the oil into our economy, and so our economy is going to crash. There's not going to be a petrodollar, so the United States is no longer the reserve currency of the world. The buying power of our dollar just plummets. And so all the money you've saved in your life is now what's it going to be worth? Pennies on the dollar? Who knows? I don't know. I'm not an economist, but I do know it's going to be horrible. If you look what's happening over Tehran right now, there's a black cloud raining toxic oil. That's like that's a metaphor. That's what's going to happen to the entire planet. And this is all because of Israel. This is all because of the Greater Israel Project, and it always was.
I laughed all night when I watched that episode of Jimmy Dore in a very dark, humorous way. And actually, I should be laughing because I've been dealing with diverticulitis. So you may have noticed I have not been around for a while. Well, it's because I have been dealing with the diverticulitis. And the last time I had it, this is a flare-up, I almost died. As a matter of fact, that summer, a woman did die of it. When your body's telling you something, pay attention. When your country's telling you something, and the world politics is telling you something, pay attention. Do not delude yourself into the idea that, oh, people cannot be that evil. That people cannot be that suicidal. That people cannot be that freaking psycho. But that's what's happening. What is happening? So, there's a variety of things have been happening. I've been paying attention. I try not to get too emotional about it. Because remember what I've been pushing all the time is you got to remain calm, you got to breathe, you got to relax. You got to make sure that you are clear thinking. So, the country has been taken over by a death cult. The objective of this is to arrive at the full apocalypse. And the ones who are at the wheel are the Zionists and the Rothschilds. And you need to understand who the Rothschilds are, because it's been bantered around so much and everybody talks about the evilness of all this. But if you study the history of the Rothschilds and how they started, and this is the thing that was always getting me, because when I mention the City of London or the Bank of England, it's the same thing, same damned thing. It's always been controlled by the Jews. We're going all the way back to the Norman Conquest. We're talking about William the Conqueror. And then after that, the creation of the City of London. This is the reason that, see, the king would live outside. The monarchy lives outside of the City of London. But the bankers, the Jewish community, could live freely, not be afraid of any attacks by Christians. Because remember, in those days, Christians did not like Jews. So this was for a reason for them to be living in the City of London. And as such, they would be the bankers for the king. But see, something happened when the Rothschilds took over. Because up until then, the bankers would be providing the money. So the Jewish community had the money because they could do usury, right? Christians were not allowed to do usury against Christians. And as I have told you, Christians cannot do usury against other Christians, and Jews cannot do usury against Jews. And so the wealth was created, and then it was invested. It was given to the monarchy so that they could go and pay for soldiers, mercenaries, weapons, etc. But something happened when the Rothschilds took over, because the Rothschilds had already in Europe, in Germany, and I'm not going to go into it, but if you read the book Synagogue of Satan, and this is the thing, The synagogue of Satan is not Jews. The synagogue of Satan is specifically, when you really look at it, it's the Rothschilds. That's what it has changed. You can have all your interpretations against Jews, etc., etc. That's your own personal thing. Read your stuff. Read your history. There is stuff in history, but you know what? Christians have committed sins too. But when the Rothschilds took over the city of London, and they did it, remember, the Rothschilds were the ones who totally understood the idea that if you bet on both sides of the game, you can never lose. So what did they do from England and from Europe? They bankrolled Napoleon and they bankrolled Wellington. And that's the reason that the only runners or riders, well, it used to be runners, then it became riders, were those who were working for the Rothschilds. So they always had advanced news. And this played into a very effective ruse, which was to make it look like Wellington was losing when in actuality the Rothschilds already knew that Napoleon had lost. But this is the evilness of the Rothschilds and their creation of the Illuminati. And people talk about, oh, it's the Illuminati going back. Yeah, there were other occult groups who've always been vying for control of the world. And they've been envisioning this beautiful new world order. They've been doing this for centuries, thousands of years. I think it goes back even further than the Jews and the Romans. It goes back to the Sumerians. It goes all the way back to that, further than to before recorded history. That the dream of, if we could just take over this whole world, it would be total peace, because it would just be our people, right? Whoever our people happen to be. Well, when the Rothschilds took over, and the way they did it is they get these wars going on. They've been doing this constantly. They bankroll the wars because wars are profitable. If you're the banker, you're going to make money because you're going to get it back in interest. So they've always been making money, making profit off the wars. And that's what they're doing right now. But this is very different because this is the end game. This is the first time that we are so close to total annihilation of the whole world. So this is going to play out in either of two ways, which is total annihilation of the world in a big giant explosion. Okay? That's how it's going to go. And I should actually fill you in on why I'm looking at this, because Jiang, Professor Jiang, he uses game theory. I don't use game theory, but it kind of is like game theory. I use the journalistic or the intel analysis 5 W's. Who, what, where, when, how, and most importantly, why. But the difference from journalism is, in journalism, it's who did this, where did they do this, how did they do this? Past tense, right? But see, when you use the understanding of the 3 time frames, which is who did this, who is doing this, and who will do this, and what will they do, and how will they do it, and why will they do it. And the why, when you really understand the why aspect of this, then you understand the insanity of the Judeo-Christians. You understand the insanity of the Zionists. And actually the hypocrisy. See, because this is the thing. If you believe in God, and that God will do this, why are these groups of people, we're thinking critically right now, right? Why are these people hastening this to occur? If God is going to bring the apocalypse, and when he brings the apocalypse, he will bring Christ back again, Why are they not trusting that God will do it? That they're actually applying human direction to cause God to do something. Who was the last one who did that? Yeah, Lucifer. Isn't this fucking insane? That's why it is the synagogue of Satan. They're not praying to God, they're praying to Lucifer. Lucifer's telling them to bring about the apocalypse. Because the whole idea is you bring back the Antichrist, the apocalypse, then the Antichrist, and then you get Christ. Or quote, the Messiah or the Mashiach, depending on the way you'd like to pronounce it. And that's why you understand this is totally being directed by a death cult. And it relies on the arrogance and ignorance of people to come about. Because they don't think critically. They just trust God. But they're not trusting God. They're trusting the people who are telling them what God is telling us to do. Is that not correct? Think about that. So John does his game theory. And it's pretty good, but the thing about it is, if he's trusting his game theory, why is he still in China, living in the city? And he's even saying it to you, if you watch, and I'm putting a link, remember, whenever I quote shows or I quote books, I always put the pinned comment, the first pinned comment are all the links to all the information. That's called citing your references, right? Used to be good journalism. Nowadays, it's like, I'll pull it out of my ass and then I'll just deliver it to you and then trust me because I told you. Which, we'll talk about titles, like, because this is, I happen to have a PhD. Yes. Oh, my name is General such and such. Or, I am the leader of the Republic of Guamaca. So what happened, we'll just detour for a little bit about titles. So here's the problem. The titles, the PhDs and everything, see, they used to represent the body of work and the knowledge and the experience of the one who had title. That's actually, I will actually give Colonel McGregor his title if I refer to him personally, directly. We have mutual friends. We had a mutual friend who passed away. Ace Lyons, Admiral Ace Lyons, I've mentioned him. It's a title of reverence, like my good friend who I respect totally, Colonel John Bates, Marine Corps. One Lung Bates. That's a story in itself. What's it like when you take an AK-47 round in through your ceramic plate? And if it just been through and through, his lung would have been okay. But since it went through the ceramic plate, turned it into fucking goo. And then he goes back into the Marine Corps and becomes an officer. Becomes an officer. Amazing. That's why they're heroes in my life. Colonel John Bates. And I'm looking over, there's a turkey on my chicken house that is kind of hanging out. So there are titles we have now, but they don't represent what they used to represent because it's changed. And it's because of the generational experience. We have a generation of softies. And these are the result of having it so damn good. Not even respecting the idea of how damn good it is until we lose it. And guess what? It's not when. If, it's when. And John, if you go and watch that whole show, and I recommend, watch that show because you'll see a bunch of things. The reason I'm laughing is because if you want to look at the face of a sheeple, look at Jim Dory. Jim Dory is sheeple. The reason he's sheeple is because you see him saying, I just hope that like somebody will take care of this. First of all, that's very un-American. Or what Americans used to be. Which, very far, I consider myself an American, which is I'm an individualist. That's the origins of being an American. Which is we'll fucking pull up our own, bootstraps and we'll freaking go get things done. That's the reason I am living on acreage. I live in the country. Did I magically turnkey this like a multi-billionaire? Who, we'll talk, I told you I'm going to be talking about that. Which, turnkeys, Not too good. Because you have no connection to the land that you are suddenly going to be living on for the rest of your life. And you'll be floundering. And guess what happened when the Senate ran off to their homes and thought their centurions would protect them from the barbarians? Yeah, they got their heads cut off. Yeah, Praetorians friggin' just killed them and said, "Welcome, I am the new Baron." Yeah, that's what's going to happen. So Suckberg and freaking Peter Thiel, Sig Heil, Peter Thiel, and all these other idiots. Yeah, we'll talk about why the wealthy are not very smart. One of the reasons is because they have a specificity. See, specificity is not a survivability skill. Specificity knows that you know how to make money, but you really don't understand too many things outside of that. That's why those people who put so much energy into making money and wealth, that's actually one of the cautions of having so much focus on wealth, is because you forget all the other stuff. What got people through the Great Depression was those people were actually very well versed in all that other stuff. That's why you could talk to a farmer in Georgia or in the hills of the Appalachia, and you could ask them questions about such and such, and they were very well read. Why was that? This stuff, this myth about the ignorant hill people. Yeah, the hill people weren't that ignorant, because if they were that ignorant, they would not have survived under the most harsh conditions, especially when the Great Depression came in. While everybody who was supposedly, so educated in the city were starving to death and couldn't find a job. So this stuff about having a PhD and you can't get a job, it ain't nothing new. And the reason is because of the generational softiness. That whole thing about hard men make good times. Good times make soft men. And soft men make hard times. And that's where we're at right now. And yeah, so Jimmy Dore, so he's the ship, so believing the idea that the government's going to take, the government's the ones creating this. They've created this. They were picked. Now, people say, it's because of Zionists, because of the Jews. It ain't because of the Jews. They're just as screwed as everybody else, man. Their problem is that they won't talk about other Jews. See, I have no problem talking about Jews. I have no problem talking about Christians. If you're a bad one, fuck you. Because you're the very reason we're here. You're covering for these people. In the same way, I have no respect for Trump. Why don't I have any respect for Trump? Because he's covering for these freaking pedophiles. This is the reason that these people are in power, and they continue to be in power. And you know what's going to happen? What's going to happen is there will be a French Revolution in the United States. Because the very people who have created the conditions that we have right now have done it by creating such division within the people. When you have that type of division, you don't get an American Revolution. You get a French Revolution. And that's where, and this is going to be the funny thing, is the very people who think they're going to take charge here. No, that's like Robespierre. Yeah, he took charge initially. And he was the one who was like doing all the guillotine orders and lobbing off the heads of all the royals and the monarchs until suddenly he ended up on the guillotine. That's how that runs. Same with the Khmer Rouge. Same with the Russian Revolution. So all the Mensheviks who joined with the Bolsheviks. And if you really want to understand, so that's actually one of the reasons. So I'll explain further why John, he hasn't said it, but I'll explain why he gave 6 months. If you go and watch, he says, we have 6 months. So what's 6 months from now? Yeah, that's September, October. What happened? Was it 1917? 1918 in Russia? Yeah. September, October. That's when it cooked off. And that's why this is the year that I hope to God you have not just sat around, not acted like Jimmy Dore. I mean, think about what has his whole life been about. He's meat. He's just fresh meat. Anybody who is focused on the idea that you're going to, be this major broadcaster and podcaster, and you're going to live through the internet, or like with Jimmy Dore, he's going to have his shows. He won't be able to get to his shows anymore. Yeah, so You can do either of two things right now. You can take the money that you have, and like Jiang says, you can go off to Jamaica and have that last fling. Or you can think ahead and basically say, I got to take care of myself, and I got to take care of my family, and I'm not screwing around with all this crap, all this luxury, and I'm going to focus on the things with whatever I do have so that at least my children might survive. That's what it is. It's the idea that your children might survive. Because the next 10 years are going to be hell. But if you're living in the country, you might have a few skirmishes, but your neighborhood, if you built a good community, will assist in that skirmish to wipe out any of the intruders who might try to take what you have. Because we're going to get into the point. And remember, it's like I've been vindicated with the GCC. I've been telling everybody. All my friends who have been freaking, and all my clients, who have been asking me, should I go to the GCC? Should I live in Dubai? Should I weather this in Dubai? I mean, wouldn't it be perfect? It's like we got the protection of the United States. And I was saying, there are things that you need to have wherever you're going. Food, water, security, shelter, community. Those 5. If you have those 5, you'll be good. Food, water, shelter, security, community. You will not only live forever, you will have bounty and abundance. If you're missing any one of those, and what was GCC? And this is very interesting because this is the difference between where I am at. I'm in Alaska. It's where I am at in contrast to people in Anchorage. Why is that? They have the same issue as the GCC. When you have a population that is reliant on 80%, that's what the GCC was reliant on 80% of imports. I mean, well, their food and their water was through the desalination plants, but their food, all the other stuff that they needed was 80% was through imports. You're screwed if they can cut off your supply lines. Same damn thing happened with the is happening right now in Alaska. From the Farm Bureau, that freaking goddamn sensor. I'll be back in a sec. Yeah, I forgot to turn off the power for my sensors. So, as I told you, set up your blinks. I set mine off by different sound. So, different tune tells me exactly where it is on the perimeter of the house and on the property. What'd I tell you? Security. You got security? I got security. Remember, I used to do this thing. I used to get paid to do this. Yeah. I'll be teaching you stuff like, how do you hunt people? It's important to know how to hunt people. Remember, we used to hunt people. What does that mean? People are like, oh, well, you just get on a helicopter. They send you in. Oh, and the target analyst is going to give you all the info. Yeah, that's the way it's done in corporate CIA nowadays, right? Remember, I was going to tell you what I thought about Sarah Adams. No, when you have somebody who doesn't have any field experience, like actually in the field in combat, fighting it out with the people that you're actually supposed to be hunting, that person shouldn't be the one making the decisions. The one who should be having the decisions is the one who's actually been in the battles, has come back. Like, I had 3 debriefers when I got back from Vietnam in 1984. We'll be talking about that. Because I'm going to tell you a little bit about the fucking Marines, sadly, that happened with them in Beirut. And it's disgusting because you start to realize that everything that we get involved with the world is always a false flag. We'll talk about it. But all good intel people have field experience in combat. So the ones that debriefed me when I got back from Vietnam in 1984 at the JCRC, POWMIA division in the Pentagon. I'm not going to tell you the one who's still alive. 2 are dead. The first one to die was shortly after Bob Hip. Great man. Good Marine. Well experienced in the field. Combat experience in the field. Another one, Wick Turrison. Wick Turrison, you want to read about one of the false flags that our military-industrial complex, which, by the way, Israel owns the military-industrial complex. The Rothschilds own the military-industrial complex. Okay? All of them. Around the world. The MIC is in all countries. In case you didn't notice. It's not just in the United States. That's how this game is played, right? Please read Pawns in the Game by William Guy Carr. It might help. It's not just a theory. It is a conspiracy. There's a difference between a conspiracy and a conspiracy theory. See, they came up with the idea of conspiracy theory during the JFK assassination so people wouldn't look deeper. Because they go, oh, that's just nuts. Now we're starting to realize, well, no, it wasn't nuts. And if you've been in the field before and you knew stuff, it's not new. But anyway, so Wick wrote this book called Talking with Charlie. And Wick died of cancer related to smoking. He was a heavy-duty smoker. Yeah. Good man. And actually, he was my first agent with Random House. Oh, and we'll talk about Random House. Yeah, and how Israeli-owned it is. And how I can paint you a picture. When I was getting ready to come out with my book, that now I'm just... That's why I just got disgusted with publishing houses. Because if it's not Israel, Jew community focused, the likely chance of it getting on there is very small. Even with something as really important as if you're in the Americas and you're an American and you had a battle going on in Central America and the hows and whys why that was happening, and then nobody knew about it, so then you weren't prepared to deal with the next evolution of that, which is then Fidel Castro, who realized we kicked his ass in Central America, then changes his strategy and buys the elections and basically gets it blood-free, everything he wanted. Nicaragua, Venezuela, Brazil. Yeah. How were the other ones he bought off? Oh, Korea. My mother's country. Korea. Fucking scumbag. Oh, what do commies do? They come, exploit. They make it look like, oh, we're for the people. And what do? They come in, clean out your coffers, and go to Belgium. So now Ecuador is trying to bring back the scumbag. Harvard educated, by the way. And that's not the same Harvard that my dad went to when he got his MBA. Yeah. The education system is so screwed up right now. The best thing you can do is send your people into a trade school. Because at least they'll have skills that they'll be able to use in what's coming. And they'll do very well. If you know how to work on a vehicle, if you know how to actually make something, not just design it like an engineer, but actually mill it and form it from a piece of metal or a piece of wood, whatever, but make things. See, that's when America was going downhill. We started becoming like the Brits. Because remember, where would you get your steel from when when England and the UK was at the top of its game? You got it from the UK. Wilkinson Steel. We're all Marine Corps. Officers get your swords from. You get them from Wilkinson. That's a Marine blade. And then production went down, and then the country goes down. Which is one of the reasons they're thinking that China is going to be the next one where the wealth is going to be going to. I don't know. The more I'm thinking it's going to South America. Remember, we had the American Revolution. The city of London realized that the wealth had to be redistributed into another. It had to be redirected into another entity. And that's where the investment came in. The investments came in from the UK, from the wealth. See, that's how the Rothschilds work. They invest in countries. And once they invest in the countries, all this stuff about what is it? The En-ROADS system. Jesus, I'm just spacing right now. I'm still under these antibiotics. Let me tell you, they play with your mind. Belt and Roads Initiative. So the Chinese with their Belt and Roads Initiative, it's the same damn thing that frickin' the Rockefellers were doing. And why do the Rockefellers do? Trauma is a very important thing. It causes you to be empathetic. How did, Nelson Rockefeller become all empathetic. And they would start going out through the rest of the world. And actually there was a little belief, you could see it in him. That's why he was the one who was public. All the people who were doing the evil machinations behind Nelson, yeah, remember, Jiang's right about this. The people who are actually in power, you don't know who they are. It's not Soros. It's not the Rockefellers. It wasn't even Andrew Carnegie. When they created the Carnegie Endowment in 1908. That's how far back this goes. Go back to my prior shows and watch them, especially the one where I quote Norman Dodd. I take a little bit of Norman Dodd. And then at the bottom, if you go to that pinned one, I give you the link so you can watch the actual show. But I also give you the link so you can go and get an actual document of the Reese Senate Committee of 1954. These people have been doing this for decades, centuries actually, if you go all the way back to the time where they really got their claws into us through August Belmont. When they sent August Belmont to stir up the South, get them all riled up to create the Confederacy, and then get them into a war of secession. And then right after they get the war of secession going, oh, exit, stage left. And what happens? They're talking to Abraham Lincoln. And now they're funding Abraham Lincoln. So what was the whole idea about that? The whole idea about that is create a war. Remember? Create the conflict. Is that happening right now? Dang! Create chaos. Well, actually, it's create the panic. Create the chaos. Come up with the answer. Yeah, David Icke talks about this. He didn't come up with this. He just brands it. So that's fun. I laugh when people brand things. Okay. Yeah, this is like Chase Hughes with branding his skills. No, man, what he did is he packaged it. What do you think we were using in Central America? The skills he's talking about. I'm going to show you how it's very dark what he's doing. I think, based on what I know from personally interacting with him, I think he's still a kid with a loaded gun. And he doesn't know what he has. And he thinks it's a toy that he can play with. He won't tell you that. But if you look at the things he's doing and using imagery to fuck with you and put you into a very dark state. His last one he was doing, it was taking, there was no positive imagery in there. See, this is the thing about subconscious mind. The subconscious mind does not know the difference between real experience, physical experience, like the conscious mind. Like if I punch you in the face, your conscious mind goes, ow! Your subconscious mind, if I tell you, I didn't hit you. Who does that stuff? Is there a group of people who do that? Like they punch you in the face, and then you respond, and then you're going to punch them back and say, I didn't punch you in the face. Who does that? Okay, I'll leave it there. So, here we are, and if you believe the bullshit that the Trump administration is saying that, oh, well, we were always going to go into Iran, and we just went together with Israel, instead of the truth, which is, no, Israel pushed us into it. And Trump is now, at this very moment, doing everything he can to get the hell out of it. See, because he trusts the wrong people. He is a really bad judge of character. And you'd think he would have learned in the prior administration when he picked that freaking bitch who told everybody should fucking take the, mosquito bite? Yeah, the deadly mosquito bite. Oh, as a survivor of malaria, it's kind of a joke with me. Yeah. Combat. Everybody talks about the bullets. And yeah, had a few. Had a few TBIs. Almost lost my leg at the same time I got that second TBI. Thank God there's only two. And I'm pretty full recovered from those. It took years. You know, I had like this freaking migraine that would drop me on my knees. So I'll give you a little experience about my understanding, personal experience of what a TBI can be. For 15 years. And then suddenly they were gone. The body can't heal itself if you let it and you don't fuck with it. And the reason you be fucking with it is because somebody with titles like doctor is telling you, oh, you should get the mosquito bite. And guess how that worked out? So what is this all about? This is all about population thinning. This is why they're trying to do this. It's all about population thinning, because who is the smallest group of people on this planet, religiously speaking, who thinks that they are chosen? Well, if they think they're chosen, and you have two other much, much bigger populations like Muslim and Christians, and what would happen if they were to suddenly get together, realize they've been played off each other to kill each other and thin each other out, along with the other things that are being played on us, like mosquito bites and economies. Remember I told you what it was like for my father. My father almost died from starvation because, like most Americans, life was very hard. People don't really appreciate and understand. Oh, and why did we have that? Because the central banks got together and played the numbers and played the games. Remember? Create panic, create chaos. Then, if you have a population that has a high unemployment and can't feed itself, except for people who live in the country and are doing fine. Yeah, that's the reason I recommend reading that book, 5 Acres and Independence. It was written by a survivor of the Great Depression who describes how everybody in the city was really badly off. But those who had been living in the country and had their farms, had their ranches, you would not have known. Except it was, well, shoot, even ammunition, go buy ammunition, wasn't that as expensive. Not to say it was cheap, but that's actually one of the reasons. Personally, when everybody was blowing off their ammo, no, the ammo's just so cheap, and they were buying rounds like crazy, and there I was like a little squirrel, had my little nuts. When I took my gun out, it was to put meat on the table, and that's it. And I get enough friggin' practice just about every week dealing with predators, so I don't have to go in practice. Yeah, we'll talk about like what you might be amazed is actually the best backup, quote, survival weapon to have. It's not the big ones. It's actually the small ones. And the most quiet, like air rifles. Nobody even talks about air rifles. But if you got pellets, you can feed a family easily with an air rifle. And especially on the calibers that they have now. I mean, shoot, you know, in the 1800s, and actually, you know, when Lewis and Clark went west, did you know that they were carrying air rifles? That's what they were using to shoot buffalo and deer and elk with, was an air rifle. That's also the reason that Napoleon had a standing order, especially against the Austrians, that because they were catching snipers, and the snipers shot air rifles because they're quieter, right? And you don't see smoke. Remember, this was black powder, so you don't see smoke, and it's easier to find where that sniper is. That's the main reason. Is because of you had a print pop up, and all Napoleon soldiers could then focus on him, and that's the reason if you're caught with an air rifle, which is wild because the air rifle was the main rifle for hunting. Black powder rifles were for war. For the same reason that, you know, you go hunting, okay, so you miss, you might get another shot with the air rifle. You fire at a deer and it sees the smoke, it knows where that shot came from, and whew, it's out of there because it heard the bang and it's gone. So it makes sense to have had air rifles be hunting rifles back in those days. But anyway, so you've got this situation right now, and you've got Trump trying to get out of it because he realizes he listened to the wrong people. Remember, he's a really bad... It's wild. It's like he only relies on his closest allies. So he relies on Jared Kushner, whose father was arrested for what? Should still be in prison, is only out because of his ties to the people who control the administration. And this is very important to understand about this. What's happening right now, we're in this attempt towards the apocalypse. These people are trying to bring back the apocalypse. To bring out the apocalypse. And the two factions. But they're all under the Zionist umbrella, which is you got the Judeo-Christians and you've got the Zionists, the Jewish Zionists. You've got the Jewish Zionists and you've got the Christian Zionists. And they're all hoping for Christ to come. And it's twisted. I got people sending me this stuff over and over about but this is all about the coming back of Christ. Well, if God was doing this, I'm fine with that. But it's not God doing this. It's a bunch of psychos trying to bring this about because they have the money, and we now have the technology in order to create the complete annihilation of the world. That's why. So, all these centuries, these people, the cabal, it's a cabal. First it was a cabal, then the Rothschilds came out, and they took over as a result of them playing the game during the Napoleonic War and the success of Wellington in playing that game. I'm not going to go into this. It's a whole volume into how that happened. But understand, that's when they took over the city of London. The Rothschilds specifically. Not a group of Jews. Because at least if you had the group of Jews as it was for, hundreds of years in England, they had common sense. And they were actually Orthodox Jews. They actually practiced. They actually were believers. Zionists are not believers. Just by the fact that they're Zionists. They believe that man should bring this about. Why should we wait until God brings it about? We will bring about the creation of the third temple. And what if I were to say that maybe the city of London is the third temple? Is that not wild? I want to go down that rabbit hole. If you want to go with me, let me know. Make a comment down below. You want to go down that rabbit hole? Is the city of London actually the third temple already? It's already created? And it's only for the Jews, specifically? It's not for the annihilation of the whole freaking world? Because when you create the third temple back in the site under the Rock of Mecca, which would in itself create the whole damnation of everything. Was it Justinian? The apostate? Yeah. What happened to him? Boom. He tried to do it. Because, according to Christians, who is the third temple? Oh, it's who? Yeah, Jesus. So if that's the case, then why in the hell are all these freaking Judeo-Christians trying to help bring back the freaking third temple? Psychos. And they're in charge now. So, where are you going to weather the storm? I've been telling you about that. Man. It is. Where are you going to weather the storm? What are the 5 you need to remember? Boom. Food, water, shelter, security, community. The community, you have the community. What else do you need? And that's a real community. It's not some false, fake-o spy book creation. Remember, spy book was created by the CIA and the NSA. And it was created as a data collection center, or a data collection conduit. And it was given to Zuckerberg in order to have him be the figurehead. Remember, if you know who these people are, they're not the people in charge. If you see them on TV, if you see them represented as the head, as if they're the CEO, they're not in charge. It's the people in the boardroom that you never see. Having attended some of these boardrooms, I can tell you from my personal experience. Remember, I'm always telling you, be careful of who you listen to. Because if all they're doing is reading books and telling you things because they read about it, grain of salt. If they've actually had physical experience, they've been in these worlds, they've walked these paths, they've interacted, and you have to live long enough to have done this. My 20s, I fought war. Those were my war years. My 20s were my war years. And then after that was my healing years. And then after my healing years from the war years, which actually, when I said the war years, I don't know if you've heard me talk about it in my prior, but I told the CEO once, where I just had a realization. We're out fishing. Yeah, we're fishing and doing our calls on the phone and get paid ungodly amounts of money. So all you VCs who are pumping your money into Silicon Valley in the 90s, where do you think that went? And what happened, because nothing was really being created, because it was, as was finally realized, I could have told you that. That's my realization. I was walking around going, what are we producing here? We ain't producing crap. But we got a ton of money coming in. We're getting paid like crazy. Yeah. Quick money. It was coming in. My view back in the 90s was if you weren't making at least $250,000 a year, you were fucking up. If you were making about $500 to $1 million a year, yeah, you're doing okay. Think about that. You go from that, where my father was the director for Asia Pacific Rim in the 70s. He created the office for Kohler International. This is the big Kohler. In your house, you probably have a Kohler plumbing fixture. You might even have a Kohler generator. My father was the director for Asia Pacific Rim. His territory was from Hawaii to Iran to New Zealand, Australia to Taiwan, Korea. You know how much he made? Yeah, he got some stocks. He invested. Did his 401k. Got fucked like everybody else. Generational. So that's what they do. They set everybody else. He was making about the same amount of money I was making within 6 months of me going into Silicon Valley, which was, what, $65,000. Within 6 months, I was making $65,000 right out of college. Or I could have gone back to be a journalist and making $18,000 a year in San Francisco, working for the San Francisco Chronicle. Yeah. Fuck that. Oh, man. I wanted to... There's some of my Marine buddies who are my age who remember the Shaw, and also I was in prison at the time, so I didn't really get the whole gist of what had happened with the Beirut bombing. But I wanted to share with you our allies so you really get an understanding. This book, because most people don't read these kind of books. I read these books, so they come up on my radar because I try to fill in what was happening, because I was in prison for 11 months, right? Being interrogated by the commies when I was 18. A lot of people didn't know that I was a Marine midshipman. And so as a Marine, midshipman from a family of Marines, when I hear about attacks on Marines, I really want to understand what happened and how did it happen. What was the strategy? What was the psychology? But here's something that Marines should understand, because there are a lot of my friend Marines who are freaking blacklisted because they're pissed off at the idea. I had one Marine buddy send me, when I sent him stuff, he said, what was happening in Iran? I said, we're getting fucked over there. And he was like, I could tell when he responded back, and because of his generation, he's a little bit older than me, that his friends probably got killed when the building was blown up by Hezbollah, right? So let me read this section to you quickly, because this is important to understand our allies. This was a book written by a former Mossad. And remember, I told you I was trained by the Mossad. I never fucking trusted the Israelis because of that experience. Thank you for the training. It's okay. It's not that great. It might apply. None of it really did, because we already had our own training. But they had to make sure, they had to take care of our arms and ammunition, right? They want to make sure that their investments were going good. So in the summer of 1983, the same informant told the Mossad about a large Mercedes truck that was being fitted by the Shiite Muslims. I'm going to tell you what the title of this book is so you can go read this yourself. It's on page 321, By Way of Deception. By the Shiite Muslims with spaces that could hold bombs. He said it had even larger than usual spaces for this, so that whatever it was destined for was going to be a major target. Now, the Mossad knew that, for size, there were only a few logical targets, one of which was the U.S. compound. So the Mossad knows about this. And the question was whether or not to warn the Americans to be on particular alert for a truck matching the description. The decision was too important to be taken in the Beirut station, so it was passed along to Tel Aviv, where Admony, then head of Mossad, decided they would simply give the Americans the usual general warning, a vague notice that they had reason to believe someone might be planning an operation against them. But this was so general and so commonplace, it was like sending a weather report, unlikely to raise any particular alarm or prompt. Kind of reminds you of 9/11. But this was so general and so commonplace, it was like sending a weather report, unlikely to raise any particular alarm or prompt increased security precautions in the 6 months following receipt of this information. For example, there were more than 100 general warnings of car bomb attacks. So you're going to have to weed through 100 general warning car bomb attacks. One more would not heighten U.S. concerns or surveillance. Adme, in refusing to give the Americans specific information on the truck, said, quote, "No, we're not there to protect Americans. They're a big country. Send only the regular information." At the same time, however, all Israeli installations were given the specific details and were warned to watch for a truck matching the description of the Mercedes. Reading down here, next page, 322. The general attitude about the Americans was, hey, they wanted to stick their nose into this Lebanon thing, let them pay the price. These are our allies. So the book I'm referring to was written by Victor Ostrovsky. That one right there, By Way of Deception. Get a copy. Read about what Americans think are our allies in the Middle East. They're not our allies. And now they're becoming our enemies. And if you watch that quick on the steps interview of Bibi, and he was asked what book is he reading, he's reading this book. Let me see if I can pull it up for you, because I'm reading it now too. If they give you intel, don't throw it in the trash. Ah, yes. Jews versus Rome. Get this book. This book right here. Yeah. Get that book right there. This is how he's preparing to deal with us. Because who is Rome now? We're Rome. So he's already telling you, this is the thing. Okay. So I told you I did field interrogation. And then I'm the only one at the agency who I know of who's actually been on both sides of the table. I was interrogated in Vietnam, and then I was the interrogator in the field in Central America. And the reason I was doing it, because I was part of the pseudo operations program that was in El Salvador at the time. And so my job was, when we took prisoners, and they could be defected, I had to get a file. So I had my dossier already started when we captured them. So that by the time I would go and see them in prison again, I gave them options. And so they could join our team. And then you had your pseudo operation running well. That's how that runs. One of the things you learn when you're interrogating people, this is actually, every journalist knows this, and good journalist knows this, is you let your interrogatee or your interviewee talk. If you give them enough time, they will tell you everything that you need to know. Bibi is telling you what he's doing. He is using Iran to destroy the United States, weaken and destroy the United States. Then he won't have to deal with a strong Rome, like the Israelis did in Jerusalem during the time of ancient Rome, when they got their ass kicked. Oh, and if you want to understand a death cult, read into Masada. God, all these movies. Why the Jewish community takes over the media, and you have all these really cool movies in the 70s and 80s all about Jewish history. Remember that movie? It had God Strauss. What's Ross Strauss' first name? I met him. He's married to the woman who was in Total Recall with is it Robert Strauss? Yeah, I met him at a dinner that Steve Canale was on Dallas. So Steve and I had hunted together. He likes to hunt. He likes to shoot birds. But anyway, he invited me to a dinner with Strauss, actor. Let's see if that'll pull up real quick. Peter Strauss. Yeah, so Peter Strauss. His wife is tall, man. She's hot. What's her name? But you know what I'm talking about. She played across from Arnold Schwarzenegger in the first release of Total Recall. But anyway, Peter Strauss was in this movie, Masada. As I recall, he was. Don't kind of very hold me to it completely. But I think I remember Peter Strauss was in it, and they were on top of the plateau, right? And what happens at Masada? They all kill themselves. That's a death cult. Think about that. It's ingrained in the culture. So if they're going to try and blow up the world in order to bring the apocalypse and bring the Mashiach, not realizing the Mashiach was actually here already, and he was telling them you need to stop. You are now changing your ways, and that's the whole idea of the New Testament. That's the idea of it. But that's the reason the old rabbis say no, and the refuters. And then you've got these Christians who are helping bring it about, and it's twisted because everybody's manipulating. So the Christian Zionists are in it because they think that after the Antichrist is brought back, because of this apocalypse that the Jews want to happen, because that means that 90%, like John, if you go and see it, 90%, they want 90% of the population to disappear. And the only ones that are going to be left are going to be the good Jews and the Goyim. But a small population of Goyim. Because a small population of Goyim are going to be the slaves. Because these people are entitled. They're chosen. So what does that mean? They don't have to do physical hard labor. So who's going to be doing it? Because you got to eat. Oh yeah, it'll be the Goyim with the hoe doing the work. Yeah. Nicht gut. So, this is going to be a wild ride, people. This is a wild ride. Again, I've been telling you over and over, you got to be ready. You people down in South America, you need to get the fuck out of there. That's going to be the new Israel. That's where they're going. You've been seeing all the rocketing and bombing over there in Tel Aviv. Yeah, people who don't like to fight. Remember, I was trained by these people. When you look at a person, you can read them real quick. You can tell, are they going to fight you? Yeah. You can tell immediately when somebody's going to take you down. They might get killed trying to take you down, but they're going to take you down. Israelis don't do that. That's why they're jumping and they're running. See, they did the first punch. They sucker punched. People who sucker punch, I have no respect. Who was the last guy who fucking sucker punched me? Oh yeah, it was my co-star. Yeah, Jeremy Whalen. Yeah, the pedophile. Oh, I said it again, the pedophile. Ooh, the PDF. Yeah, he's a PDF. That's what you notice at Discovery. A lot of PDFs. And when you do a lawsuit, how old is he in a lawsuit? Shoot, I don't have a copy. You know, hold for a sec. I'll grab the book. Yeah, this is where you read about the media. Again, I said it. This is how they control you. They lead you down these roads where you have a belief system. You should trust the media about what they're doing. And then you get an eye opener. This is your eye opener. Don't tell me I didn't tell you so. This is verification of what they've been trying to do. They try to dumb you down so that when they feed you the bullshit, you just eat it up. And you think that your administration is representing you. You think that your administration is there to protect you. And you then are conditioned to ignore everything that your grandparents taught you if you're an American, which is don't ever trust the government. I think I'm probably the first. I'm part of the first generation that was taught to trust the government. That's when they taught, they would give the commercials of Coca-Cola. Life comes da 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 da. Remember that song? Yeah, we're gonna kumbaya together. Yeah, we're all gonna kumbaya together. We're all gonna be in a collective. Because when we get you all together, then all you gotta throw is a grenade, and then you get them all at the same time. Yeah, that's why you're taught when you're doing your patrolling. Space yourselves. so you won't get everybody at the same time. Yeah. Think about collective that way. That's a good way to think about it. Individuals working together. Individualistic. That's the origins of Americans. Americans came from all these different countries. Individual identities working together under the citizenship of American and made this beautiful abundance that we had. And I'm going to read had. It has been stolen from you. It's been stolen from you by these oligarchs. And these oligarchs have been placed there. They themselves are Kushner, Ackman, all these people that you see. I do not trust any celebrity. And for you people who are following frickin' Tucker, that guy's a liar. Oh my God, am I going to lose a bunch of people because I said that? He's a flat out liar. I know fact. He interviewed a friend of mine. That interview should have gone on for frickin' 2 hours. All that ever happened was 15 minutes. If that interview had its full breath, the Biden administration never would have been in there. But in the end, we're in a situation right now. You cannot vote back what we had that was brought to us through our founding fathers. Who are our founding fathers? They bled to death. They bled for this country. Those were our founding fathers. Remember that. Everything that you have now was bled for by the founding fathers. They created what we had. We no longer have that anymore. The people who they took it away from, they got it back. They started working on it. They tried to do it during Andrew Jackson when they tried to bring in the central bank. And he refused them. And they tried to assassinate him twice. And then they created the Civil War. And then they assassinated Lincoln, who was going to keep them from doing it again, to create the central bank when he realized what was happening, when he realized who August Belmont really was. And then they got him. And that's when they brought in the first one. And then after that, the full solidification was another panic, and they bring in the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is totally uncontrolled by the American people. And that's how they've been stealing your money through taxation, which is totally illegal. I've constantly told you not to pay your federal income tax as an American citizen, and how you're doing it as a voluntary act. If you pay your federal income tax, you want to pay your federal income tax. Go to agentfortruth.com, www.agentfortruth.com. This guy is a former IRS agent who was arresting somebody, and the guy told him, you have no law. You show me the law, and you can come and get me. He went to go and find it. He could not find it. He sent a direct, it would have been an email to his director. And the director came back and said, put your head down, get back to work, and shut the fuck up. And that was when he wrote his resignation letter and became the person that he is right now, trying to help other Americans. I'm going to put links again. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help our country. They cannot do this without using our money to do it. You're funding the war in Iran. You are funding. If you're paying your federal income taxes, you're funding the war in Iran. You're funding a war that's designed to destroy us. It's designed to finally bankrupt us. This is what every war has been created for. They profit while we lose. They profit while they lose. This is how they step up. They haven't been just doing it with us. They've been doing it with every country. This is the Rothschilds specifically. It's not the Jews. Separate yourself in your mind from this ridiculous... It's anti-Jew. I'm not even going to say anti-Semitic because these aren't even Semites. These are Ashkenazi. The Ashkenazi are Khazars. The Khazars are a Turkic people who were converted under King Bulan. You don't know that history? You should. Educate yourself, people. They have dumbed you down, and they will continue to dumb you down if you don't have curiosity. Critical thinkers have curiosity. Why don't you have curiosity? Probably because you don't have very high traumas in your life. Thank God. Remember, I have a lot of traumas in my life. I watched the frickin' Tet Offensive from the roof of my house That's why I get along with South Vietnamese who had similar experiences. That's why I get along with people who've had traumatic experience of being kicked out of their own countries through war. I watched the May Offensive. That was really traumatic. I woke up in a hospital when they took out my tonsils at the Tan Son Nhut Army Base Hospital at Tan Son Nhut. And that's in my book, The Bamboo Chest. That's my other book. Yeah, you should get a copy. Hey, I'm a writer. Yeah, the other book was actually an international bestseller back in 2004. You wouldn't know that because it disappears. If it doesn't fit the agenda, it goes. Just like people don't realize the amount of fame that I had. That's why I understand how fame is created. And then there's real fame for what you do. But also, it's not just what you do. It's how you fit the agenda. The agenda in the 80s was to take everything off what was happening in Central America and other parts of the world. And the way you do that is you have somebody who comes back from Vietnam, and the question of MIAs is distracting people. Mission MIA with Chuck Norris. Sad to say. Oh, and rest in peace. Bo Grice just passed. Was it last week? A bientôt. Yeah. Very patriotic American. Tried to get things done. There's a question of how much it was backed by the US government. And people say, oh no, he was just a lone rider. But hey, William Shatner sent him some money, and so did Clint Eastwood. Woohoo! And then people, when they get money, I don't know what happens. They start forgetting their principles and their scruples. Me? I don't know. They've been dumbing you down for freaking decades in this country. They hijacked our education system absolutely for sure by 1935. Since then, they amplified it with the creation of the Department of Education, and that's when it changed. I remember I told you I was in high school at the time. I remember vividly when this happened in the late 70s, early 80s, and I was just blown away. The requirements, what it took to graduate, et cetera, all this stuff was thrown away because they didn't want you to be smart enough to critically think about who you're going to be voting for or what's happening in the world, because then you'll just be a good little slave. You'll just follow along and do what they tell you to do. And they've been doing this for centuries throughout the world. So, what they've done in the United States is they're now into the next stage of it. It's the next stage. It's steps. They don't create anything new. So the Rothschilds don't create anything new. They succeeded when they got in Germany, and then they started getting into France. And what they do is they send a relative over, and then they invest. And once they invest, then they've got you by the balls. And once they've got you by the balls, because monarchs are freaking dumb fucks. Remember, the pansy asses. They don't have the wherewithal. Look at all these inbred monarchs. They're reliant on the system. And oligarchs are the same thing. They can't fight. They don't know what to do if they don't have their advisors. And you know what? Trump is an oligarch. He doesn't know what to do. He didn't do his service. You know, if he did his service... See, it's not the idea he was so smart he stayed out of Vietnam. It's the idea that he's the third generation of draft dodgers. He's a German draft dodger on his great-grandfather's side. So his great-grandfather is about the same as my great-great-grandfather, who avoided the War of Unification. Well, no, my great-great-grandfather is actually one before him, who actually did serve in the German army during the unification of Prussia. But at least he went into service. And after Bismarck pinned the Iron Cross on his chest for losing his leg, you might be wondering why he would do that. So the family history, this is kind of interesting. Family history, as I was told, is that he was actually an illegitimate son of Bismarck, because Bismarck had a lot of mistresses. Interesting, because that would be the only reason that Bismarck would pin the Iron Cross, he himself, on a corporal, if it wasn't his son. And then it's that same son who said he would never have any of his children lose an appendage or a leg for the Kaiser. And that's the reason he came to Chicago in the 1860s, right? So this was the War of Unification between Prussia and Germany. But Trump, it's the idea of service. All wars are fucked up. They're all fucked up. But what's important is your sense of honor and your code to your fellow citizen, no matter how fucked up they get us into a war, that you'll be there to defend the country. And hopefully when you come back from that war, you GWAT kids, you prevent it from happening again. That didn't work out, did it? Because everybody got on the cult following. There's the Democrat following, which follows, oh, we got to have Kamala in. And then you have the right side, which is the cult, which is we do the MAGA cult. These are all cults. When they prevent you from, when they have slogans and they don't have real answers. Remember, Trump was always talking about the problem. Politicians always talk about the problems, but they don't really give you concrete answers on how to fix the problem. Concrete. See, when you design a house, do you just go, we just like throw down something here, put the walls up, and put a roof on top? Yeah, doesn't work that way. You make your plans, you design it out. I design my log homes. I design them out, put them on the foundation. Then log home building is different from building balloon house, building modern frame. You build a wall first, then you put your floors in. The floors on a properly built log home hang off the wall, not the other way around. That's why when you go and see these modern log homes, they're sitting on top of the floor. Yeah, that's what buckles the floor, just from the weight of the logs. Duh! Okay. Remember what I told you? Get your intel. Get your information from the people who know what they're talking about, not the people who read about it or thought it up themselves. I'm telling you from studying it. I'm telling you from lived it. I lived through Vietnam as a kid. We were there from 68 until 72. I saw that. I saw the border fighting. I saw the MIA thing personally when I was a photojournalist stringing for AP and Reuters out of Bangkok, which ended up leading me into trying to find out what happened to the American MIAs, and there I was in prison. I found out what happened to the MIAs. They all got killed. That's the sad part about this. About that. I saw Central America from 85 until 90. Every part of it. First observing as a journalist and then participating as a recruited paramilitary officer. That's how this crap works. They create these conflicts, they create this panic, and then they come in because you're reaching. What they do is they put you in a situation where you're overboard and you're just trying to stay afloat. And then they throw the life preserver. But then they bring you on the boat. And then you realize you're on a boat of cannibals. Oh, crap! What do? You're outmanned. You're outgunned. You're on the menu. Do your best to stay off the menu. You've got a little bit of time. Go watch the shows that I'm talking about. I'm putting the links down below for you. Read up what you can. Jiang's right. I give it until September, October. Remember, they like he says, these are occultists. So occultists have a philosophy. They have a religion. It's a religion. It's a religion of darkness. We would call, same people would call darkness. So they believe in doing it according to the month, according to the sun. They follow that stuff. That's why they did the attack. Go look. Astrology is a tool. Ooh, would I be like scaring a bunch of Christians if I said, yeah, I use it? I pay attention. Like Mercury retrograde. Right now I'm in Mercury retrograde. But I think it's okay that I'm getting across to you and I'm not being confused in my communication, because during Mercury retrograde, people don't communicate well, and they don't listen well, and its communications are all screwed up. Don't do any financial exchanges at this time. A lot of conflicts really get going. Wars get started, especially with all the other stuff that happens. So the occultists, and the Rothschilds are big time occultists, they'll follow that, but they really are bad Jews. They're horrible Jews. If you look, even Evelyn Rothschild even says, well, I'm actually one of the first ones who's considered one of I've been studying the Jewish religion now. Yeah, he's been studying it like a scientist. I don't believe that he's a good Jew now, even though his whole family paid for everything to create it. The reason they created Israel was in order to create a morass of chaos through the region. And it doesn't matter whether they're sacrificing Jews to do it. It's that old thing about kill them all now and let God sort them out later? That actually is before Vietnam and before Central America. That actually goes back to the murder of the Cathars. You know who the Cathars are? Yeah, it's an interesting piece to read about. Read up on the Cathars. Those are actually good practicing Christians who believed on the direct connection of you directly to God. You don't have to go through somebody else in order to get to God. Right? That's what Christ was trying to tell you. They believed it. The Catholics, the Romans who took over the religion in order to continue power, yeah, they took it over and then they murdered the Cathars because the Cathars would not bow. Free people don't bow. And the only way you're not going to be able to keep yourself from bowing is you move into the country. Go get yourself a copy. I'm going to put a link. 5 Acres in Independence. Read about what it was like during economic hardship in the United States and actually throughout the world. The UK, they got hammered. Oh, but it's interesting that Germany didn't get hammered during the 1930s. Why is that? Oh, because they kicked out all the central bankers? Oops. Why did that happen? When you have central bankers who are beholden to the Rothschilds, you are under the control of the City of London. And who are the countries that, up until now, were not controlled by the City of London? Well, the last one was Venezuela. And right now, it's Iran. Oh, and then Israel now says that that Turkey is now a questionable country. This has nothing to do with bringing the Israelites. As a matter of fact, the more I'm studying it, I'm finding out that these are actually the Canaanites who are in power. Know the difference between an Israelite and a Canaanite? The son of Cain, the children of Cain, the Canaanites who were cast out by God, who are now taking their revenge. And think about that. A people who suddenly have gotten into total control of all the countries that they were kicked out of. Germany, France, England. They've taken control. They control the central banks. Switzerland. They have gone back and exacted the revenge that was put upon them by God. And now the biggest revenge coup for them is to have actually taken over Israel. But now they're expanding because it has nothing to do with Israel. But they're getting their ass kicked. So this is going to turn out really interesting because if they get their ass kicked, I'm going to give you a resume. This is going to blow you away. This is how Trump can get out of this and actually save the whole world. People will think that, oh my God, this is horrible what you're saying. I'll tell you how this will play out if they can do this. So they're going to do if Israel has a Samson option. So the Samson option dictates that Israel will never be taken over. So they will do what Samson did by pushing the pillars away, right? Samson and Delilah, great movie. Or you could read the book. You know, the big book. The old book. So they will nuke Iran. My suggestion to Trump, I have an answer for Trump. If you want to end this quickly and not have us all turn into slaves and then have the apocalypse continue, is when Israel does nuke, because suddenly over decades of Israel saying they don't have any nuclear option, but we've known that they've had it. Anybody in Intel knows this, and it's been written about for years that they do, and they do have the nuclear bomb. But now they finally admit that they have it, and now they're willing to use it, and they'll use it on Iran. Yeah, that's a mind blower. So when they do this, when they send this nuke over into Tehran, right when that happens, the best thing that Trump can do, or any red-blooded American can do, is send a nuke to Tel Aviv and blow the complete country off the planet. And that'll be the end of it. There won't be Mecca. There won't be the temple. And yeah, there won't be the Christian sites either. C'est la vie. But you know what? We got peace. Because after that, every nation will become the nation again, and we'll have to deal with what we have. Will we be at war with Mexico? Could we be at war with Canada if Canada doesn't join with the United States and become the United States of North America instead of the United States of America? Who knows? But it'll sure beat having to continue to deal with a people, with a cabal that is trying to bring about this world where either you are just a, quote, good Jew and a goyim. And if you're a goyim, you're a slave. That's it. Think about that. You think I'm joking? Remember what I told you about people who have never dealt with evil people. If you've not been in war, in direct combat with people, you might give people the benefit of the doubt. If people tell you they're going to kill you, then you pay attention to what they're going to do. If they tell you that they're going to enslave you, are they lying? Are you going to pay the price for questioning what they're telling you? That will be the answer. Because right now what's happening is you're having this play. Because the Rothschilds have used the Jewish people to create their point of chaos, to spread chaos throughout the Middle East in order to make all their deals and get all the oil that they've been playing with and controlling it through the Strait of Hormuz, etc., the GCC, etc. But what's happened is, as more Jews have realized this, Israelis have realized it, they said, wait a minute, we're not keen on actually being just used anymore. And they're now playing another game. Think about this. They're playing this other game. And this other game is that they get us totally destroyed. And then they don't have to worry about anybody to the north when they take over Patagonia. And that's Plan Andenia. Think about it. Think clearly about this. Comment down below if you think, it doesn't work out together. But think about it. The Israelis don't want to be the freaking, what do you call them, the whipping boy for the Rothschilds anymore. You know, the managers, the foot soldiers, managing the United States and sending our blood to go and die in their wars, because they know when Americans fully understand what's really happened, we will nuke Tel Aviv. We will. When Americans get together and realize that we've been played since the start of the American Civil War by the Rothschilds, by all this crap for centuries, Americans will want to nuke Tel Aviv. They don't want to deal with that. So what they're doing, and they don't want to live in the Middle East, because they can't defend themselves against the Arabs who will finally all get together. The Farsis and the Arabics, they'll all get together. The Persians, they're getting together now. When you're hearing that the Shia and the Sunni are getting together, that's not a good recipe for the Israelis. And that's why they're banking on the idea that they can take out, using us to do it, which is only going to take a ground war. And that's not going to succeed. We barely made it in Afghanistan. Look what happened in freaking Vietnam. And we won that one. Militarily, we won in Vietnam by the end of the war. And guess what happened? North Vietnamese came in and just took over. Boom. And it's because we didn't back them. Because we would have to keep on backing them. In the same way we've been continuing to back in Israel. Yeah, think about it. Israel is like the South Vietnam against communism in Southeast Asia. Yeah, keep it chaos. Keep it going. Keep the commies trying to deal with each other. Chinese against Russians. Remember, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. The ones who are the experts, the ones who spread this around the world are the Rothschilds. That's their game plan. That has been their plan. But now the The Israelis don't want to be dealing with this, especially the true Jewish following Jews of Israel do not want to deal with this. And the Zionists, according to Herzl's book, a Jewish state, the next option was Patagonia. And they're going to Patagonia because Patagonia is a beautiful place. They're already doing the burning. They're already laying the work. They're laying the artillery on the beach, burning the fires. And they already bought off Millet so he could create that act so that foreigners could go and buy up the land. Well, guess who's buying up that land? The majority are Israelis. So when they get there, they got to make sure that everybody else is not united against them. So how do you do that? You now use the whipping boy, which is the Mapuche Indians and all the Indian tribes. So what they're going to do is they're going to go off and do all these false flags and make it look like the Indians were doing it. Or some nationalistic group was doing it. That's how these people play. But next operation is going to South America. That's why I've been vindicated on the GCC. I will be vindicated on not going to South America. If you thought your getaway plan was to go to South America, rethink it. Your only option might be New Zealand. But I think the whole frickin' world is going to be on fire. Because they own all the central banks from all these places. But you have division. You have division between the Rothschilds and the Israelis. So that's a good thing. Remember? At least there's this because they realize they don't want to be sacrificed. Like there was sacrifice on Masada. Right? Know your history. Pay attention to history. This occult, they understand history. They understand perfect moments to do things. They do them on these moments using these specific conditions. Either they create the conditions or they go along with the natural conditions that are occurring at the time. Planetarily, they follow that stuff. They pay attention to it and they act on it. That's why you look at all the stuff that's happening. So, I've given you more than enough to think about. Remember, this is all about critical thinking. Don't be the sheeple. The sheeple do not think. They're like Jimmy Dore. He can't believe that this is actually the end game is an apocalypse that would lead towards 90% of the population being annihilated. Come on, they were trying to kill you with the mosquito bite. They tried to kill all. They've wiped out the majority of the males, the alpha males in the United States, starting with World War I. That's how they did it. Everyone who went to the call, Tennessee, first to fight, boom, and again and again and again and again. There's a time to fight for your country. It's on your soil. And I hope Americans will go and read the Constitution. And in your own countries, wherever you might be, in the UK, I hope you take back your country. You, in the UK, you could take your country back and you would save the whole world. All you have to do is take over the city of London. Go and do what the monarchs will not do. I probably won't be allowed to come back to Britain again, but I implore you, run the fort. Charge the wall. If you take out the city of London, take control of that city. You will then take back your country immediately. And by doing that, you will destroy the head, the real Hydra, the real head of the Hydra all at once. Because all the ones will fall. Because then every other country will take down their central bank and reinstate it in a new one. We'll do it immediately here. The Federal Reserve will be gone. There will be a central bank. And it will deal with US dollars. And you know how that will happen? It will say a US dollar the way it used to before. It won't say a Federal Reserve note on the piece of paper. Next time I'll show you. Well, go into your own wallet if you're an American. You've got US dollars. Open it. What does it say? It says Federal Reserve. That's not an American dollar. That's a Federal Reserve note. What that is a level of debt that we're paying off. Horrible. Man, on that note, I'm out. Go watch the show. Jimmy Dore. Last night's episode. It's worth it. Don't be Jimmy. Poor old Jimmy. He won't have any more comedy shows to have around the country. You might actually have to physically work his ass off in a field Hey, I'm not complaining. You won't have to worry about starving. In the same way that your grandparents didn't have to worry about starving because they planted their, quote, victory gardens, etc., etc. They never stopped. My grandparents had victory gardens going all the way until the day they died. They'd go out and work in the garden. They had their fresh produce. And if you had honeybees in the back, like we have honeybees, you have everything you need. The land will provide as long as you reconnect with the land. Remember, this cabal has been all about disconnecting us from the land, the stuff that God created. God created that. They've been working us towards creating what man created. When was that in the Bible? Oh yeah, that was the Tower of Babel. On the Tower of Babel, yes, thank you. I will give you a course on how to learn foreign languages quickly. 네, 한국해요. Okay. On that note, hasta la vista.